The Flash was supposed to be DC's answer to Spider-Man No Way Home. In fact, Warner Brothers was so confident in the film that James Gunn called it one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. Even Tom Cruise praised it after an early screening. Yet somehow, this $220 million blockbuster became one of the biggest box office bombs of 2023, losing the studio an estimated $200 million. One controversial star, multiple delays, and countless production issues later, the movie that was meant to reset the entire DC universe ended up being its biggest financial disaster. In June 2023, after nearly a decade in development hell, The Flash finally raced into theaters. The marketing promised an epic multiverse adventure, the return of Michael Keaton's iconic Batman, and a story that would change the DC universe forever. The trailers showcased spectacular action sequences and multiple versions of Barry Allen. Everything pointed to this as DC's next billion-dollar hit. But something went terribly wrong. Despite the star-studded endorsements and massive marketing push, audiences stayed away. For a movie that costs more to make than the entire nation of Grenada spends on imports annually, why did it crash and burn so spectacularly? Let's break down exactly what went wrong with The Flash. But before we race on further, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with related videos. It's one small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Thanks. A troubled star at the center. Let's address the elephant in the room, Ezra Miller. Cast as Barry Allen in 2014, Miller initially seemed like an inspired choice, bringing in offbeat energy to the role in Batman v Superman and Justice League. However, starting in 2020, Miller became involved in a series of increasingly disturbing controversies that would ultimately cast a dark shadow over the entire project. The studio found itself in an impossible situation. Their $220 million tentpole film starred an actor who couldn't even promote it. Between Miller's arrests in Hawaii, disturbing allegations of grooming, and erratic public behavior, Warner Brothers had to make an unprecedented decision: promote a superhero blockbuster without its main star. This wasn't just about hiding a controversial actor, though. It was about completely restructuring how you sell a superhero movie. Think about it. When Spider-Man No Way Home was released, Tom Holland was everywhere. Late-night shows, interviews, social media, the works. But for The Flash, the studio had to rely on director Andy Muschietti and Supergirl actress Sasha Calle to carry the entire promotional campaign. But here's where Warner Brothers made their first major misstep. Instead of acknowledging the elephant in the room and focusing on the film's other strengths, they went overboard with hyperbole. Studio executives called it the best superhero movie ever made. James Gunn praised it as a masterpiece. They even trotted out Tom Cruise's endorsement. The problem? When you set expectations that high, you better deliver something extraordinary. The Multiverse Mistake. By 2023, the multiverse wasn't just a comic book concept anymore. It was everywhere. Marvel had already explored it in Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Even the indie hit Everything Everywhere All at Once had pushed the concept to new creative heights. The Flash arrived late to the party, and despite having access to decades of DC history, it somehow managed to feel less ambitious than its predecessors. Yes, bringing back Michael Keaton's Batman was so cool, but the film's multiverse felt strangely limited, especially compared to the scope of Spider-Verse or No Way Home. The Batman problem. Speaking of Batman, let's talk about how The Flash mishandled one of its biggest selling points. Michael Keaton's return as Batman should have been a cultural event on par with the three Spider-Men uniting. Instead, the marketing gave away most of his scenes in trailers, and the film itself kind of struggled to justify why this particular Batman was crucial to Barry's story. The movie also made the puzzling decision to sideline Ben Affleck's Batman, who had actually developed a mentor relationship with Barry in previous films. By trying to serve both Batman, the movie ended up doing justice to neither. Let's also not forget that Christian Bale turned down the invitation to do a cameo appearance at the end of the movie, and instead, we got George Clooney, who's frankly regarded as the worst Batman of all time. The VFX Controversy. When your movie costs $220 million, audiences expect a certain level of visual polish. The Flash, however, became infamous for its questionable CGI even before release. From rubbery-looking character models to that now infamous scene of Barry catching falling babies, the visual effects became a subject of mockery on social media. Director Andy Muschietti attempted to defend these choices, claiming the unusual CGI was intentional in representing Barry's perspective in the Speed Force, but audiences weren't buying it. In an era where Spider-Verse was pushing animation boundaries and Top Gun: Maverick was emphasizing practical effects, The Flash's visuals felt like a step backward. The DCEU's identity crisis. Here's the thing about The Flash. It wasn't just trying to be a good movie, it was trying to fix an entire cinematic universe. Since Man of Steel in 2013, the DCEU has been struggling to find its identity. Should it be dark and serious like Zack Snyder's films? Light and humorous like Shazam? The Flash tried to be everything at once, and ended up being a perfect representation of the DCEU's biggest problem: inconsistency. Think about it. When Avengers Endgame did time travel, it was revisiting moments that audiences had emotional connections to. When The Flash attempts something similar, it's playing with a history that many viewers either didn't like or didn't care about. The Battle of Metropolis might be significant to Barry, but to audiences, it was just another CGI disaster from a divisive movie. The James Gunn factor. On October 2022, James Gunn and Peter Safran were appointed as the heads of DC Studios, announcing a complete reboot of the DC Universe. This created an awkward situation for The Flash. How do you market a movie that's supposed to reset a universe that's already being reset? The timing couldn't have been worse. Gunn's announcement of a new DCU essentially told audiences that nothing in The Flash would ultimately matter. Why invest in a universe that's about to be erased? The same problem plagued other 2023 DC releases like Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Blue Beetle. The competition problem. The Flash didn't just have to compete with superhero fatigue. It had to fight for attention in one of the most crowded summer movie seasons in recent memory. Released 2 weeks after Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which did Multiverse better, and just before Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, The Flash found itself squeezed between established franchises and critical darlings. Even Pixar's Elemental, which opened the same weekend to disappointing numbers, managed to find its legs through positive word of mouth. The Flash, meanwhile, suffered one of the worst second weekend drops in superhero movie history, a staggering 72.5%. Ouch. The budget burden. Let's talk numbers. The Flash cost $220 million to make, plus an estimated $150 million in marketing. Using the standard rule that a movie needs to make roughly 2.5 times its budget to break even, The Flash needed to earn close to $925 million just to turn a profit. To put that in perspective, that's more than what Black Adam and Shazam: Fury of the Gods made combined. This massive budget meant that the movie couldn't just be a moderate success, it had to be a mega hit. And in today's theatrical landscape, that's an increasingly tall order for any movie, let alone one with this many strikes against it. What's particularly frustrating about The Flash's failure is how many of these problems were just avoidable. Warner Brothers had already seen what happened when they rushed Justice League, when they tried to catch up to Marvel too quickly, and when they relied too heavily on nostalgia with Batman v Superman. Yet somehow, The Flash managed to repeat many of these same mistakes. The Flash problem. Here's something that's often overlooked. For 9 years, Grant Gustin had been playing The Flash on the CW to a dedicated fanbase. The show might not have been perfect, but it had successfully built an emotional connection with audiences. When the Flash movie chose to completely ignore this version of the character, even during a multiverse story, it felt like a slap in the face to fans who had invested nearly a decade in the character. The most successful multiverse stories understand that nostalgia only works if there's genuine emotional attachment. Spider-Man: No Way Home brought back characters that people loved. The Flash brought back versions of characters that either hadn't existed yet, for example Nicolas Cage's Superman, or that modern audiences barely remembered, like George Clooney's Batman. Remember all those early screenings, all those celebrity endorsements? Warner Brothers screened this movie more times before its release than almost any other superhero film in history. But instead of building organic buzz, it felt desperate, like they were trying too hard to convince everyone that this was a must-see event. What's even worse is that they gave away most of their surprises in the marketing. Nicolas Cage's Superman cameo announced a month before release. Michael Keaton's Batman showed most of his scenes in trailers. By the time the movie actually came out, there were few surprises left. The future impact. The Flash's failure doesn't just impact this one movie, it has larger implications for the entire DC superhero genre. When a $220 million movie with Batman, Superman, and multiverse elements can draw an audience, it signals a significant shift in what viewers want from their superhero content. The Flash was supposed to be DC's Avengers Endgame moment, a culmination of storylines that would reset their universe and set up an exciting future. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about everything that can go wrong with modern blockbuster filmmaking: over-reliance on CGI, mishandled nostalgia, troubled production, controversial stars, and a fundamental misunderstanding of what audiences want. So, what do you think about The Flash's box office failure? Was it just bad timing, or a sign of bigger changes in how audiences consume superhero content? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, let us know in the comments which other movies we should deep dive into next. This video was made by movie fans for movie fans.